For the best listening experience, please download our sprlivefm.com app from either the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. You will not only experience our radio, but SPR, TV, and live chat.
over again. Oh, I do apologize, folks. I do apologize. My humblest apologies. I just see the notes coming flying through. I thought I put everything on. I'll start it from the beginning again. My apologies, folks. All of that went out the window. They didn't hear a thing. Only the
Okay.
radio heard. The TV side didn't hear. So we're gonna match it up. I'm just gonna bridge it, but I'm gonna put this whole part back into the video that we just created there. Again, I was talking about the for those of you watching on TV. I'm trying to figure out why you're not hearing anything. There's no sound. There's no sound. People are saying there's no sound. Okay, there is sound now. For those of you who are listening on radio, you probably would have heard what Derek was saying in terms of how he became homeless. He put himself there, and what I talked about before pertaining to um, what I saw on TV. Nevertheless, we're gonna continue. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, so like I said, I put myself on the streets part basically to get clean, and part of that was I had to quit doing illegal activities in
Mm-hmm.
order to do so. So panhandling then became a non-criminal way of making money, and so I started to panhandle. And I heard rumors around my city at the time. At the time, I was living in Barrie, Ontario, that there was like a gang of panhandlers that would like jump people for like taking their block or taking their corner and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
being the person I am, I had to go figure that out, see if it was true. Um, so I went to the big ramp in Barrie where everybody goes, and I had a gentleman come over and ask to if he could panhandle there, and I was just like, this isn't my corner. You know what I mean? I said, you need to eat. We all need to eat. So yeah, you know what I mean? He was expecting, it was a test basically. He was
Mm-hmm.
basically testing me to see how I would react if I was going to be one of those types, like, no, get out of here. This is my corner, blah, 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 blah. And after that, he invited me over to the other off ramp, which is the big off ramp where everybody went. And he says, yeah, he said, what we do over there is we take turns and everybody gets their one shot down the ramp on Bayfield, like the big, huge off ramp. Like, so everybody gets their turn to go down the ramp, and then they alternate turns, and then in the meantime, they all go sit up in the bush and just hang out until
Wow.
their next turn. So it's a yeah,
Okay,
it's
so let me understand this. Hold on, hold on a second, because we as drivers, we see this exchange. People come and go and come and go,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
assume that they're working for somebody. And that's the reason why you see one person will come, that person leave, another one, and another one. They will exchange someone that goes, and another one takes over the spot. So it's really a community that's saying, "Hey, we gotta live. This is how we gotta do it."
well, yeah, a lot of the times it's I mean, like a lot of the times it is we all got to take care of each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they like in these big off ramps is that's how we'll operate is we'll take turns literally, you know what I mean, taking turns, and each person gets their turn to go down the ramp, and whatever they make is their money, you know what I mean. But
Wow.
when when it comes to it though, like, you know what I mean, if somebody doesn't make any money and somebody's got no food or something, or the community helps one another out. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
how we're all supposed to be living in our world, but unfortunately, our society, with money and greed and everything, has us, a lot of people living differently. You know what I mean? Just for themselves, as opposed
Mm.
to one another. With like I said though, you do have your bad seeds everywhere. So I mean, you will get your odd person that will be like, no, I'm not sharing, or I don't care. I'm gonna keep going. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care what you say. But for the most part, like I said, everybody takes turns, and it's one person after another, and everybody helps each other out. You know, um, it's not an easy life by no means.
I
Like,
can see it's not easy.
Can't be.
It
Can't
can't
be
be. It
with,
can't
especially
be.
with the weather and
Especially
things
the
like
weather.
that. It's
Yeah.
not like you're all summer. I mean, you got to cater for the fall, the winter, the rain, the snow. I mean, that's a hard
yeah,
life. And I'm with Claremont because I have seen even in my area where people are what I was calling switching off, and I was like, well, they're switching off. What is that? Is that a game? Is that are they like working for somebody? And that was my thought process because I would see, somebody's coming down the road and somebody's leaving. And now I know that that's what they're doing. They're pretty much, you guys are a community and everybody's taking a turn. So that is
Yeah,
not a great life to have to live, but that is a good knowledge base for people to know that it's not a scam and it's just people trying to live.
yeah. For the most part, like if you're noticing that, that's probably what it is. Is that it's just people switching out, taking turns. Like some places might just do like, okay, well, you get 20 minutes, you get 20 minutes, type deal. I don't know with other places, but I can speak for Barrie because this one particular off ramp was really big. Like, I mean, you could get 100 some odd cars on this off ramp during each individual light. And so, like, by the time you walk from the start of the ramp down to the bottom of the ramp, you're probably about a 10-15 minute walk through cars. And, like, you can actually do quite well on that off ramp. Like, like there's guys that have done a walk down there and come out with like $100, and then there's times you walk down there and you come out with $20. I
Mhm.
didn't really get too involved with that whole off ramp. I just stayed on the other off ramp on the opposite side,
Mm-hmm.
which was just by myself. And like, I could go out for 3-4 hours and come back with, like 40-50 bucks, enough to get food, cigarettes, or whatever I needed for that day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it still took time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
it's not a great job, but you know, for sometimes it pays more than minimum wage.
Hmm.
So you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
there's that too, where people choose to do that over actually working a job because they're making more money than they are working in a restaurant or working at McDonald's or Burger King or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
A little
So
bit
you get
dangerous
that
too.
too. Uh, yeah, I mean, I suppose it is. I've never really looked at it as being dangerous, to be honest with you. Um, I guess maybe because
ha-
I guess if you got the wrong people, like I said, there are bad people out there that will just come and jump you for your money. Like that does go on the streets too. Like
Yeah.
even
more
even
rampant
those
than
are
anywhere else.
panhandling.
Like,
I'm
You're talking about
pardon me?
those that are panhandling will jump the another panhandler. Is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily panhandlers. There are bad people everywhere, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe
right.
they are panhandlers. Maybe they're just other homeless people. But there
Mhm.
is a lot of theft and robbing that goes on amongst the homeless community. Like, I mean, there are people that are robbing people's clothes and like everything. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't really
Wow.
own anything because somebody's going to probably rob you, and, or, but there's the other side though, too. If you're with good people, you all take care of one another, you all protect one another, you
Right.
all
Mm-hmm.
have each other's backs too, right? You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mhm.
there's times, when you just want to be alone, you know what I mean? And you go somewhere and you're sitting or you're sleeping, and you know what I mean? You'll wake up and somebody's stolen all your stuff, like
Wow.
your bag of clothes, stuff like that. It's really cutthroat too, you know what I mean? Like, you got the best of both worlds, sadly. You got the best of the dark side, you got the best of the good side,
Wow.
Mm.
mixed in with these worlds on the streets.
So
So it's
you did say to me that that you were homeless twice. Um, what was the second time about?
the second time was about because I went to the mental ward for about 3 months, just mainly just to use to get clean because I could get into the hospital faster than I can get into a treatment program.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 3 months in a mental ward, and then I was in the shelter, and I got kicked out of the shelter because I brought up the fact that like they have brought in like 4 or 5 people to help with the homeless, like to help us to find apartments and stuff like that. And I'm looking at the picture like, okay, so these 5 people are getting a salary, and all they're doing is printing off ads from the internet. Like, that's all they're doing. I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, the business side of things, right? I'm thinking about like these 5 salaries. Okay, that's got to be 100 grand a year. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
If not
Right.
more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, that 100 grand, that's like half of a house or a building or something. You know what I mean? Like, the money could be gone to far more useful. So
Someplace else.
naturally, because I raised a question about that, they kicked me out of the shelter. So at that time, this is where I actually had to like put my butt into gear and actually do something. So it was winter time. It was February, and
Wow.
it was freezing cold, and we had a lot of snow up north in Sudbury. Like it was just that winter we got like 5 feet of snow in like 1 week. Like it was insane winter that winter. So I had like $300 in my pocket, and of course my first instinct was like, you know what, let's just go drown our sorrows and
Mm.
be done with it, right? But then I was just like, no, I can't do that. I just can't do that. So I placed a deposit on a bedroom, and I was actually working at the time too, because got a job a couple days after getting into the shelter. I got a job at Mary Brown's just cutting chicken. So I rented a place. So for 2 weeks, I literally lived on the street and still held down my job.
Wow.
And it wasn't easy. Like it really wasn't easy, to hold down a job with,
Right.
not having a place to sleep at night. Like, and it's crazy because they kick you out of everywhere. They don't want us anywhere. Like homeless people, they kick us out of anywhere and everywhere. Like it was late at night. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was standing at the bus terminal, and there's nobody there. The buses had just finished for the night, and then there was another homeless person, and he'd come up, and one of the bus drivers, the last bus to leave the property, he stopped and he started yelling at this guy, and I'm like, why is he yelling at you? Like, this is not right, I'm like, I'm homeless too, but because he dressed the part, because you know what I mean, he was out there for longer than I was. I'm just dressed. So because his clothes were all ratty and dirty, they felt that it was right to just attack that person. I'm like, we're both homeless, like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter, right? There are a lot of good people out there too, like that do help out. Like there's a lot of
I'm going to bring up something that I know those that are listening online now that are of the same as I am, church folk. Have you ever gone to the churches and they turned you away?
It's funny you bring up the churches, because the churches don't really do a whole lot. Like, when it comes to shelter and all that kind of stuff, it's not the churches anymore that are doing. I mean, I'm sure there's still churches that still do shelter stuff and stuff like that. And the shelter, they do donations and stuff like that, like clothes and food and stuff like that. Sure, the churches do that, but there's not a whole lot for like the housing side of it, or like, the John Howard Society here in Canada is a big thing. Where I was in Sudbury, it was the Salvation Army was the shelter, but they closed their doors in Sudbury.
Wow.
So after that happened, I mean, they built a new shelter system, but they only got like 20 beds. Like that doesn't do anything. Like, it's not really much there for help. You know what I mean? Like, but like, as for the churches opening their doors, not many of them open their doors anymore. I guess, too many problems too, right?
Right. I guess the ones that aren't that great mess it up for the ones that really needed that assistance. Because I know
Yeah.
the church they get a bad experience and then they just let it go. They're not gonna want
Yeah.
to entertain anybody else, even if they're on the up and up. Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that
It's
happening. Because I.
unfortunate that people do ruin it for others,
Mhm.
right? Because I did work in the shelter system afterwards in Sudbury, where I did the overnight emergency stations for like when they have the like severe cold alerts, like -20 or whatever. They just would open up for a place to stay warm. And like, yeah, like I said, you got your good seeds and you got your bad seeds, right? And like, unfortunately, the bad seeds, can be really bad.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
tell me, I mean, you said twice, and after the last one, what really got you off the street? What was it for you that says, okay, I have to do this to, like, if you were to tell another homeless person how to make it, how to do it, what would you say to them right now? How to make it?
Right now is just be determined. You got to be determined. I mean, we're also talking about a different time era too, though, right? Like when I went through my stuff was like 2019, 2020, before COVID, right? you could get or Ontario Works, or you know what I mean, government assistance, and you could actually still rent a place. I mean, those days are gone.
Really?
I mean, like even if you're
Wait. Hold on a minute. What do you mean those days are gone? You can't. What happened?
Because of inflation, right? So like a person on Ontario Works,
Right.
like welfare,
Mm-hmm.
we'll call it here in Canada, Ontario. A single person only gets like $700 a month. That's it. So where are you going to live for $700? I mean, you can't even rent a bedroom these days for $700 a
Right.
month.
Right.
Wow.
So
Unless you actually know somebody, say, okay, give me 5 of that 700 that you're getting.
yeah, but then that only
Wow.
leaves you 200 for groceries for the whole month too, right?
Exactly.
Never mind a phone or anything else. So back in 2019, 2020, when I was starting out, I was able to find a whole basement apartment, a 1-bedroom basement apartment for $600 a month. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
plus, like I
Yeah.
said to you, I was working, minimum wage job
Mhm.
too, right?
Mhm.
So that helped. But today, you can't do that. Like, you can't find a
Wow.
place like that.
I must say though, I am totally blown away by the fact of what's actually happening. I don't know a lot about the stuff. I know they're homeless people. I know there's different shelters. Like one of the things that's kind of like is the wording that the woman used. I don't know where she's from, talking about they will try to help. Not we are going to help. We're to try to
We're gonna
help
try.
this guy in the who's living in the van. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? You're going to try to help this gentleman who's living in the van when really and truly you should be helping him. I mean,
Right.
if I'm going to say this, and I'm probably get in trouble for saying this, but it is what it is. um, if you can find $1 billion to send to fight war, you can do something
Hmm.
here for the homeless people. If you can find $1 billion
Oh,
to set a fight war, you can do something here for the homeless.
You know what, too? I think sometimes the perception of people, they don't recognize that homelessness doesn't always necessarily mean somebody was on drugs and messed up, or
Exactly.
somebody was. It's not necessarily mean that not all homeless people came to be homeless through that route. It could basically be loss of job, loss of this, loss of that, can't keep up because, he said, inflation. I mean, all kinds of stuff could
Mm-hmm.
lead to somebody being homeless. So I think because of the negative perception, I don't know that people commit as much as they could or ought to help out homeless people because they make an assumption.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
very, very true. Yes.
I'm going to appeal to the churches, and that are, or even if you belong to a church that is actually listening at this point in time, I'm appeal to you today. Uh, we need to come together. We need to do something. We need to stop fighting against ourselves. Because churches fight against themselves too sometimes, and we need to do something as what the Bible says. He says the poor is always going to be among you.
Oh, yes.
Feed them. He says,
Mhm.
for what you've done unto them, you do unto me. So feed them, house them, clothe them. And I know some of the churches have big edifice, big churches, and they have, they're doing really well, that could do something about this. I don't know what can be done. I don't claim to have the answers. I mean, Derek has been informing me about some stuff that I didn't even know. Now I have this interest now that I don't know how I'm going to do it or when I'm going to do it. That if I'm passing on the street and see a homeless person, to actually have a conversation with them, like, try to find out what's their story, what's your story, why are you here, and if I were to be able to help you, how could I help? I mean, putting money in your hand is one thing that would only last for the day, but
Right.
could I help you find a job? Could I help you find a place to stay, to get you off the street, to get yourself a place where you can actually say, I have an address, now I can apply for a job, and now I have an address where they can say, here you go, and just
Right.
just something we can do. It's because you know what, I look at myself this way. I am one paycheck away from being homeless myself. And I'm not saying that I'm not, God is not taking care of me, He is. But what do I mean by one paycheck away? Because at any moment, something could happen, and there you go on the street, any moment, any moment. It happens to the best of
Mm.
us. You know,
Mm.
did Derek feel that he would be homeless? I thought, sir, you never thought you'd ever be homeless.
No, to be honest with you, I never thought that, to be honest with you. But like I said, though, the initial time that I first went on the streets was a decision that I made, right? By, getting rid of the evil out of my life and trying to live on the straight and narrow path. You know what I mean?
What made you
Um,
What made you make that decision though? Like for getting rid of the your past and starting a new life.
I just got, to be honest with you, I got tired of it, man. I got tired of the people's stories, the people's excuses. Like the ability for me to read a person is just like, it's great because like that experience I got from, doing what I was doing on the
Mhm.
streets,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
like, you just I just got tired of it. Just got tired of everything. There's the same old thing. It was always chasing money, always chasing money. And that was another thing. Like I worked in the construction industry too, and even there, I always had to chase money and fight for my money that was rightfully mine. Even backed by a union, I still had to fight and chase money that was supposed to be given to me.
Mhm.
Like there's always everybody's just out, trying to take. When it comes to money, like everybody's lost their minds over this
Tell me
You're
about
not
it.
kidding.
You're
over
not
this
You're
kidding.
over
not
this
kidding.
this
Yeah,
paper drug. Like it's really sad
right.
that the world
Yeah.
comes to this. Like everything revolves around money. Yeah, you talk about the government. Yeah, the government has the money to solve this homelessness problem, but they don't want to solve that problem. You know what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean? They don't. They want us all living under their demand, and so they can control us. And
Mm.
I'm gonna ask you a question that you don't have to answer if you don't want to answer. Do you have children?
I do.
What do your children? Are you in communication with them?
Yeah, actually, I am. It's a little rocky, but yeah, I still communicate and talk with them. I was talking with my daughter this morning, actually, before for the show
Yeah.
here. And yeah, they worry. I mean, of course they worry.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
Because I
but
mean, they know you when they were younger. They know what dad was, and then dad went to the street. Dad went homeless, and then dad went homeless again. And they must be concerned, like, okay, what is dad doing? Why is he not getting himself together? And
well, it's hard though because like you're limited on how much money you have in order to survive and live, right? So
hmm
naturally,
Mhm.
because of that, you got to go for low income places,
hmm
right? Like
Mhm.
technically, I'm technically kind of homeless right now as we speak too, but I'm not. I do have a roof over my head, which you
hmm
can see in the
right,
background here,
right.
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, but it's temporarily this. And what brought this on was just because I lived in a place that I could afford, which was like a trailer slash cabin,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
And then there was an altercation between me and the landlord's son-in-law, where this gentleman actually tried to kill me by driving a forklift through the cabin.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. So and now you gotta understand. Now I'm not on drugs. I don't drink or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like so here I am minding my own business, not doing anything, and something just arises, and just like that, I'm homeless.
Wow.
So a
Wow.
lady that I was helping out with in the neighborhood here, she's helped me out a lot, and I'm blessed for that. And I thank her very much for that. So I've been helping her out. So she had a neighbor that's been able to, kind of temporarily put me up. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
come the end of the season though, I mean I gotta figure out something still again too and
Mhm.
make a move
Mhm.
because where I'm living right now is not it's not I can't live here. As much as I want to live here, it's because I'm not driving, so I'm in a small town, so I'm totally dependent on other people for
Mhm.
groceries and for everything like that. So I have to get myself out of this small town and probably back towards the city.
Hmm.
Now, with that
Yeah.
comes, you know what I mean, more temptation,
Other
more,
things. Right.
Right, right.
yeah, you know what I mean? But being forced to live in these lower income places, you know what I mean? Like I said, anything can happen. And just like
Mhm.
that, at no
You'll
fault
be
of your
out
own.
again.
You're out again.
Yeah, something happens. You know what I mean? Something happens and you're out again. There's bad landlords out there too. There's good landlords out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
in Sudbury, when I got that basement apartment, okay, I was working minimum wage, and I would keep my money in cash, because it's old habits, hard to break.
Mhm.
So I'd keep it hidden in my drawer, and I noticed money going missing. And I'm like, wait a sec, the money's going missing here. Like, what the heck's going on? So one day when I was leaving for work, I set up a camera on my
Mm.
nightstand, and I was just like, and sure enough, guess who comes into my unit? My landlord. Goes right in through the drawer where I usually keep the money, turns around and looks, and then sees the camera. Well, you know what this guy was doing in my unit while I was at work? He was selling guns and heroin
Oh my gosh.
out of my unit while I was at work. I can't even exaggerate to make this stuff up. Like, I can't. So I fled that place. But like, this is what you're
What?
subject to. So I realized that, some of these landlords target individuals like myself because,
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? Because if something goes down, they'd be like, oh, it ain't mine, it's his.
Right.
Shady,
Yeah. Yeah.
shady.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had some stash spots. Like, so I fled that place. But I did get him back, though. Don't worry. I did get him back. So at the time, I was working at like the shelter and stuff like that. So there was a homeless couple that were friends of mine that I was friends with. So I explained to them the situation. I said, you guys want a free place to stay for the winter? They're like, yeah, sure. So I put them in my unit. I said, here you go. Stay there as long as you like. So they stayed for about 6-8 months rent-free on his dime under my name in his basement. And it come to the point that he was going to take, this is how God works, though. You know what I mean? Come to the point, he's like, get these people out of my house. I said, not until you give me back what you stole from me. And it was funny, too, because he's like, well, I'm going to file with the landlord-tenant board here. I said, you go right ahead. I said, who knows? Maybe the courts will shut down again because this is during COVID now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Right,
swear
right.
to you, the very next day, without a word of a lie, the very next day, the courts shut down again. He messaged me. He's like,
So he couldn't do anything.
yeah, he couldn't do anything. So he messaged me the next day. He's like, I just sent you a money order for the money that was with you. So he gave me my last month's rent back.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me the money he stole from me, and he gave me a little bit of extra money. And we went our separate
Nice.
ways, and those people ended up getting housed themselves.
Right.
So they moved out all on their own too.
Right.
So it was just all perfect timing. But that's just to show you how God works. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
He
I'm
works
assuming
in
that you
ways.
are a Christian, and you
Yes.
and I would continue to encourage you, my brother, to continue
Yes.
reaching out to God. He's going to turn this whole thing around for you. And sometimes we have to
Oh,
learn things. We have to figure out how we need to go through stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. No, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if God wasn't in my life. Like I see the work He does, and if I might say something about the panhandling thing, the very first time I went out panhandling, I went to a Walmart, and I wrote this whole big confession thing out because I was the reason my whole marriage fell apart and everything. The whole family blew up. It was all my fault. So I felt really bad about that. So I wrote this confession thing, and I went panhandling out of Walmart, and it was a Sunday. And this man walked by, and he had his daughter with him. They were both dressed up like you know what I mean. You could tell they were coming from a function somewhere. He stops. He reads my sign. He goes back into the store, and he comes back out. And he's like, "Are you hungry?" And I said, "Yeah." And he hands me a $5 bill, and he's got like tattoos all over both hands and everything. And he says to me, he says, "Listen," he says, "I want you to know." He's like, "You've seen the tattoos on my hand." He said, "I was an ex-president of one of the 1% biker clubs
Mm-hmm.
here in Canada." He said, "I used to be the president. Like, I have blood on my hand." He said, "If God can forgive me, God can forgive you. And to keep sticking with God and keep having faith." And that stuck with me. And
Wow.
like I said, I've stuck with it ever since. Like, you know what I mean? I've never not given up on faith or hope with God, because like I said, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And, you know,
Mhm.
Wow. Derek, we want to thank you so much
Amazing.
for your time.
Yes,
And I
indeed.
mean, as you said, I need to stop and have a conversation with them. They will explain you just did to us. We appreciate
Oh
you
yeah,
for doing
you'll
Yeah,
that.
hear some
yeah.
good stories.
I can imagine, and I'm gonna dig
Yeah.
for more. I'm definitely gonna dig for more, and I appreciate you talking with us this morning,
Yes,
sharing with
indeed.
us
Thank you.
all this information that we didn't know.
Mhm.
I believe God is calling me into some part of that area. I don't know how. I don't know when it's gonna start. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But it's suddenly become this burning interest in me to find out how can we help? What can the church do? If the church can do anything, what as me as an individual, what can I do? And I mean, I've discussed it with my co-host Faye T. I don't know where God is calling me now, but I've been having this interest of seeing people homeless, and it's not a fear that I have that I could become homeless too, but I understand how easy one can become homeless, and therefore we shouldn't take life so lightly. It's like "Pfft, that's not my problem, that's their problem." It's all our problems because we need to figure out how we can help. Jesus himself said, the poor, he says, I'm not going to always be with you, but the poor will always be with
Or you
you. And
have them.
therefore, we need to do something about it. Because one day he's going to ask us, what did you do? Did you
Right.
help? Did
Right.
you reach
Mhm.
out? What did you do? And I don't want to
Right.
say, well, I thought they were just scamming me, because I'm that person. I'm the person. I just see them changing
Yeah.
guards there, like and now you're
Right. Right.
explaining to
Right.
me what it is.
What it is.
Yeah,
Right. Right. That was
I
definitely
mean,
my
some
thought
people
too
use
because I could see it.
yeah. What do you say, sir? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
some people do use the money for the wrong reasons. Don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
I give money to the homeless all the time.
Hmm.
It's not my,
Right.
I don't have the right to tell them what they can and can't spend their
Mhm.
money on,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
their free will, right?
Hmm.
That God gives us that free will to make
Correct.
that decision, right?
Right.
Well, that's their free will to make that decision. I mean, there's always other ways of, giving food too. Like on
Mhm.
Christmas the one day, somebody gave me some marshmallow cake. It was the best marshmallow chocolate cake I ever had in my life. I was there like, I'm like, I don't have any money, but here I got this marshmallow chocolate cake. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll take that. It was good, but you know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be money to
Yeah.
help out, right?
Right,
Right.
right,
Right. Right. True. True.
right.
Yeah. Go
We
ahead.
want to thank you again for the interview. A question popped into my head. It popped right back out. Um, wow. Yeah. Anyways,
You're gonna have
it
to
just
save it for next
I gotta
time.
save it for next time. Yeah. I in your parting words, I mean, you're now out. Yeah. As you said, you're kind of like technically homeless again, but you still have a shelter over your head. What would you like the listeners to know with someone like yourself who've been homeless, who've received from God temporary in a different spot, but you're not completely homeless, but you are because you don't have your own place. What would you like the listeners to know about yourself and those who panhandle?
Just keep having faith and trust in God. I mean, He says He'll take care of us and He'll make sure that we're fed and clothed. Keep your head up and watch your surroundings. Obviously, be safe. Try to be safe.
Amen.
It's a
Mm.
tough world out there on, but like I said, you stick with the right groups of people though, and you can avoid the dark side of people too, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
And for the churches who are, um, who you probably think could do more, what would you say to the churches in terms of a situation like this?
I don't really think it's. I mean, the churches can keep doing what they're doing and help in any way that they can, obviously. But I don't think this is really the church's problem. I believe this is the government's problem, and the government should be doing more. To be honest with you, should be stepping up. You know, they have the finances. If we can send what was it? I think it was like $18 billion we sent to Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Do you know how many abandoned schools and government buildings are in this country that we could have converted into
For
housing?
something.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
sure it's the same
Yeah.
in New York too. You know what I mean? With
Absolutely.
government not,
Absolutely. But they
yeah.
have a thing where they have to house the homeless, to be honest. In New York State, they have a percentage of they show shelters. they have maybe like 8% of the homeless that are not sheltered and the other 92% are sheltered because that's something that they have to do in New York State. Not all states are like that, but for New York State, they have to find a shelter for the homeless. Some people accept the help, and some, especially if they've been out there for a while, they just don't know how to interact and function in the shelter environment. So some of them just prefer to be on the streets, is what I'm getting to. So, but as far as New York State, they have to shelter the homeless. Yep.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say this. Then we gotta wrap it up. Um, in as much as you said the church, the government is responsible, but we've been given a command by God to reach out to the homeless. And on that premise, I'm looking that the church will do something of that nature. Reach out to the homeless, reach out to those that are less fortunate. Reach out to those that needs the help. I think we've become comfortable just going to church on a
Right.
Sunday, have a place to worship. We call worship, have all these different
Mhm.
functions, but forget what our real call is. And
Right.
the churches, being most of them are charitable organizations, can get funding from the government to do the things they need to do. So if we all start applying, we probably will get the funding to be able to help out. Hey, if the government don't want to give it one way, we have to find another way to get it from them. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah,
No.
we just did a collection for homeless and actually for a men's homeless shelter we did
Mm,
this time. One time we did the women, but we just ended last week our church did a men's
mm,
homeless. And we also feed them every third Saturday. I mean, it's not every Saturday, but it's better than nothing.
right.
So
Right.
we do
So,
what we can because you never know.
Yeah.
You just never know.
can I say one thing
Yeah.
about Canada's shelter system? Is you can count the number of men's shelters on both hands, as opposed to across the entire country. Okay, it's in single digits, as opposed to in every city you have at least 5 or more women's shelters.
Um,
Right?
Why is
Yeah.
that?
Anyhow,
Why is
thank
that?
you.
Why is that? Do you think?
That you have,
I'm sorry, you didn't hear that.
we froze.
You froze for a second. Didn't hear that.
I didn't hear what you're saying. I was
I,
letting you
I,
go.
I said, why do you think that is? That there's less men shelters than there are.
Well, naturally, women and children come first,
Right.
right? Obviously, but they don't want to help men. They don't. We're supposed to be able to solve everything and take all the wounds with us.
Mm.
Wow.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Don't hang up. Stay with us. We want to thank you once again for being with us this morning, and I appreciate you sharing your story with the Praise Life Morning Show
Yes,
and the
indeed.
listeners of SBRLiveFM.com, Fun City Radio FM, Bay Hill News Network, and Power Slam Radio. We want to thank you all, our listeners, wherever you're listening from, and even on our streaming platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and our live TV on SBR Live FM. Thank you so much, Derek, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the best listening experience, please download our SPRLiveFM.com app from either the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. You will not only experience our radio, but SPR, TV, and live chat.